Awesome. On the line, we have Ethan. Ethan, how are you going?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very awesome today. Could you introduce yourself and the business you work with?
Sure, yeah. My name's Ethan. I live in Wellington, and with a business partner, we started a meal replacement business, so importing meal replacement products from the Netherlands and selling to customers in Australia and New Zealand. And we encountered some hurdles along the way.
Good stuff. Oh, well, interesting to hear what these hurdles are because, look, the first question I've got for you is what had you wish you had known before launching your brand into Australia?
Great starting question. So the cost of labor is probably the thing. So there were two big hurdles we faced. One was we weren't based in Australia, but that's where our distribution was centered. So we were using a distributor who packaged the products for us and sold them, or like shipped them out to our customers. And that cost a lot of money every time because you have to pay them for storage of the product and charge every time an order comes through and they have to package it and send it out. And if we were based there, we probably would have done it ourselves because it was like it broke into the profit margins that we had, which were not great already. Every order you'd lose money slightly because you had to pay like $20 for them to actually send it out for you. So I'd wish we'd known that. We were thinking of like Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon as an alternative. You need massive scale to actually get an account with them. So we went with like a local competitor to that, and yeah, not cheap at all. And also the food safety regulations in Australia and New Zealand are different from Europe, but not for any like good reason. It's arbitrary, the differences, and that caused issues with the amount of vitamins in the products we were importing, which eventually was a big problem. So I wish we'd known more about that. We hired a lawyer to like investigate all that for us. They said the product's fine, it's going to meet all food safety regulations in Australia and New Zealand, and that was actually not the case. So
Wow.
yeah, bit of digging into that and a bit of reducing the cost of labor for actually shipping things out would have been the key things I wish I'd known.
Awesome. Yeah, some big lessons and insights there. And obviously, before you started, you would have sort of looked into some local resources and done a bit of research. How much did that help sort of prepare you for your launch, or how much did you have to learn along the way?
Yeah, we did some market research, but not in any formal way. So essentially it started as I was a consumer of that type of product. So I tried all the local versions of it and things that were easily accessible in New Zealand and Australia. They all were pretty rubbish. So I started looking into like international products that are popular in the market. And then we just like found this one in the Netherlands. I had bought some myself, and then we just approached them and said, look, you're streets ahead of the competition in our area. No one's importing your product here. It costs a lot to ship it here. Are you interested in expanding your market to Australasia? And they said, yep, if you can give us a business plan, we'll have a chat with you about it. So the research was like, as a consumer, we started looking at, yeah, what are we going to be competing with? What kind of demographics are buying these products that we could tell? And how would they respond to advertising? I guess we thought about at the start, like, do we just go with social media marketing because the demographics mostly younger people, that kind of thing. And along the way, we were learning the whole time about the demographics. So we'd keep good track of like who our sales or who our customers actually were, what demographic they fit into. And there were a bunch of different ones we hadn't thought about before. Things like people who using it for exercise reasons, I guess. It was kind of like a supplement to their gym routine. And also like wealthy professionals that weren't necessarily young but were time poor. We hadn't targeted them at all, so we had to learn a lot along the way about who was actually buying the products. But we were definitely, I found that we had a definite advantage over the products just because we had tried them all ourselves at the start. So that was probably the key niche we fit into, was all the other offerings didn't taste as good and didn't look as nice and were just kind of bland. But yeah, we didn't really know who would buy them until we'd got about 6 months into it.
So having gone through all that, it sounds like you went through a bit of a journey, and you've learned a lot along the way. What would be your number one biggest piece of advice for anyone else that's looking to expand their business into another market like you did with Australia?
I think starting off, I think the key that I don't really know how to phrase properly is you want to have, I wish I had more things that were in my control directly. So if I was starting again, I would go smaller to begin with, ship the products to my own house or whatever, and send them out manually so that I could control the distribution. And I would hopefully have a supplier that would manufacture to our food safety regulations, rather than having a pre-manufactured product that may or may not fit those regulations. We didn't buy enough from the supplier for them to change their recipe. So if I had control of that, we would have said, look, you have to make sure it's got the right amount of vitamin A and not too much and all that kind of thing. So basically just having more things that I could actually control would be my key bits of advice. The more moving parts you get in, the more partners you have to work with, the more chances things are going to cost way more, or there's going to be big issues that you have to overcome.
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of getting those things under your control, is there any advice you would give as to how you would go about sort of making sure you've got that control in place?
Probably have that discussion before you even start spending money. So if we talk to them about the recipe at the very start, we maybe could have negotiated something where they change something or customize the recipe for us at the beginning, or if they said no, they couldn't, maybe they weren't the right supplier. So probably we dove into the deep end and just said, look, we'll buy 2 pallets off you. We've been told that will work in our market. Let's buy 2 pallets and see how we go. But probably we should have thought about those things at the beginning and took those to the negotiations before we actually placed an order. And then if they couldn't meet the requirements of our laws, then we probably wouldn't have gone with that supplier. So it's more, I guess it's hindsight, which should have been foresight. We should have looked into it beforehand, but we only realized afterwards that we wish we could control those things more. And I guess the part about the regulations, like the vitamins being too high for our standards, we did everything we could possibly do to meet those regulations. We got the lawyers involved, we got importing experts and food safety experts to weigh in. Everyone said it's fine. So there's some elements you can't prepare for, but the more things you can control, the better. And if we were packaging and shipping them ourselves, we would have not had that cost of like $16 or $16 to $20 every time an order came in. It would have just been the shipping fee that we'd have to pay, and boxes and tape.
Awesome. Oh man, some really big learnings and insights there. Do you expect for other aspiring businesses, if they were to follow this advice, how much do you think this could save them in terms of if they were to make those mistakes? How much would they be able to save with this kind of advice?
I would say, if the profit margin is 40%, using a distributor who's packaging and sending for you, it could have been 50% if you'd done it yourself. So I'd say a good 10% on every order was at least was the difference between us doing it ourselves and us having a partner do it for us. And once you factor in other expenses, 10% a 10% less profit is actually not great.
Yeah, and obviously that it's going to scale based on the size of your business model. So getting these equations right and getting this advice locked in early could save you megabucks in the long run.
Yep, 100%. That's definitely what I would have changed myself.
Awesome.
Plus, another thing, try not to buy products that are bulky from somewhere like Europe. It was like a 6 to 8 week ship time.
Wow.
So if we sold out, which we did quite often of our key products, we couldn't replenish for 6 weeks. And that supply cycle was not ideal.
Yeah, so having sort of more certainty around your logistics and supply chain is going to be vital when you're sort of pushing more users to your site that are purchasing, but you aren't able to have it in stock. You're sort of giving them a unideal experience. Is that sort of what you're hinting at there?
Yep, and you end up, so you'll do a marketing campaign to bring customers to your site. That drives the traffic up, that drives up the sales, which means you are likely to sell out faster, but you haven't got the easy supply chain to replenish the stock. So we were getting more customers than we had products for a while, and that just turns people off. They were, they'd give up on trying to order things because the thing they wanted was constantly out of stock. If it was a closer supplier, we could have just popped over to them and bought a couple of boxes and brought them back. But going back and forth from the Netherlands was just not feasible. So yeah, that was another thing to try and manage better if I was doing it again.
Awesome, that's huge. Yeah, having that sort of more holistic approach and making sure that all components are going to work together will have a much better output overall. Thanks, Ethan. I really appreciate your time and for answering these questions. We really appreciate your insights.
No worries at all. Happy to help.